out there in the crowd.
All right. Well, let's go from a crowd shot to a less than crowded shot. Again, there's been Doctor Who's, there's been all kinds of
Oh
things.
yeah. This was so okay. So I went to a event in Louisville, and it involved meeting Gene Simmons and getting a picture with them. And then you at the after it was all over, a small group of us, I think it was about 12 of us, got to sit in a circle, and he was in the middle of the circle and would answer any question we had for 1 hour. We had
Wow.
yeah, it was a cool event. But he came in and he was signing, and when he saw my shirt, he knew who Svengoolie was. He's like, "Oh, I know Svengoolie." He says, "But I think your shirt's a little unfinished." And then he took the marker that he had used to sign my copy of Famous Monsters of Filmland and proceeded to put the Batwing, his infamous Kiss Batwing, over one of the eyes of the Svengoolie shirt,
Nice.
which is now behind me as it's been retired.
Yeah, very
Nice.
But
Right
yeah, that's it
there.
right there. Yep.
well
And
done.
so then I saw Svengoolie about a week later at Flashback Weekend, and I showed him the shirts. There's a picture of him pointing to that shirt, and because he's like, "What?" But he thought it was funny. He was actually quite amazed that Gene Simmons knew who he was. But Gene Simmons is a big monster horror movie fan, so I wasn't surprised.
You think somebody would come up with his stage pageantry
Right.
and his cosplay before cosplay? You could say that Gene Simmons invented cosplay within rock
Yeah.
and roll.
That's
And
Right.
a counter argument to that could be early Peter Gabriel and Genesis, but let's say
Yeah.
within horror themed stuff, if we have to put a subcategory to it, for sure nobody was doing that
Yeah.
before Kiss.
Yeah. It was cool. It was a pretty fun time.
Gee, tell me if you remember this more Kiss specific and more the playground as we've referenced the school building. So we used to be in our early years at school. There was the one door we would come out, and there were the stairs, and right along the along the cement stairs, there were like some side ramps. And I distinctly remember the Kiss graffiti along the side ramp of the stairs. One of the earliest pieces of graffiti I've seen in my life was Kiss.
Kiss.
Yeah.
Do you
Oh
remember
yeah.
that? Gee, or not so much?
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all, but
I,
I'll
ha-
believe you that it
I
happened.
have the Kiss Marvel comic. I don't know if you remember, they did a comic book where they supposedly used their blood, went into the ink. Like they literally went to a place and the nurse took their blood and put it in the ink used for the comic book. And it took me over 20 years, but I finally got every single member of every original. There he is. That's what I'm showing Svengoolie at Flashback, the
Ah,
beautiful thing. But yeah, it took me over 20 years, but I got every original Kiss member to sign that comic book, including Stan Lee,
oh,
before he passed away.
wow.
So I'm very proud of that. That's one of my favorite pieces is that comic book.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's really amazing.
Well done. Well done.
And
Uh-oh.
this picture, are we talking about Rico Browning? Because
Oh,
this is,
all right. We'll get to Rigo here in a second. So go ahead. Amongst the appearances, right? So there's the Nightmare on Chicago Street. There's of course many other appearances, C2E2s and Flashback Horror Weekends and store appearances. So this specifically,
this was a one shot. He was at the Movie Co. Digital Theater in Rosemont, Illinois, and he was showing a 3D presentation of Creature from the Black Lagoon. And the person that was in charge of creating this event is actually the same person, Mike Kurtz, who created Flashback Weekend. So this was his thing too, and it was fun. We were in the lobby of the theater, and he signed. He did a signing, and then he went in and presented the movie, and then he did a costume contest with kids dressed as for Halloween. Because this was right, I want to say this was right around Halloween weekend. It was like right the last appearance before Halloween.
so again, Sven and the creature, the Black Lagoon, are so intertwined over time. Let's take this minute to acknowledge it since we last recorded or since we were last doing anything in this format that Rico Browning had passed on. Clearly he was the last of the original of the Golden Age horror actors to be alive, and he was. I know a year ago he was in I think we had him at 92. So he was, in his early 90s. That's a good long life. It's a great number of years. Besides being, if you will, a horror icon, he was one of the founding forces behind Flipper. So a guy who had great physical ability as a swimmer, as we noted previously, to be a swimmer and in a latex suit. That's really something. And then to also go on and create family-friendly content. And at our age, I'm, more appreciative of family-friendly content than maybe in my younger years. But to be behind Flipper, G, your thoughts or your recollections?
Well, it's really sad, right? It's definitely the end of like an era. It's truly the end of an era of the icons who represented the universal monsters. I mean, the horror genre has moved on and continues to advance and evolve to new tastes, but it's a capsule of time, and Riku Browning gave so much to that character and also to cinematography of doing those underwater types of scenes. So it's really sad. It's really sad. But it was really wonderful, Mr. C, when we could do that live stream together where we set our appreciations for Riku Browning.
And I'll put the link for that at the end. And then, Dave, I'll use this as a bridge to get your thoughts. So what led us to that was Sven, blah, blah, blah. Easy for me to say. Svengoolie Rich Koz had put on his blog, hey, Riku's not in the best of health.
Right.
The family says they would appreciate letters, which led to me to send in such a letter and for us to echo that pitch that came from Rich Koz. And I'll put a link to that towards the end of the end of this conversation here. So Rich, good guy through and through, time and time again. Dave, your thoughts on Riku Browning?
Well, like G said, he was the last of the Universal monsters, the classic Universal monsters, and certainly lived a long and healthy life. The last time I saw him was in 2020 during the height of the pandemic. And he was still pretty with it. We were talking about Julie Adams, who had, of course, passed by that time. But really very unassuming, just didn't, very quiet. Have you ever had a chance to meet him? He just was very mellow and, matter of fact. I was talking to him about, because he was behind the scenes of this really terrible movie from the 70s called Island Claws. It's about these giant crabs. I love the movie because I like that kind of stuff. But I was talking to him about that, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I never watched it." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, it's the end of that topic, isn't it?" But yeah, so he just kind of would do his work and move on. But yeah, he was a great guy. He'll definitely be missed.
And then one more thing, G, you were kind enough to get this for me when I really started to get interested in the creature. So again, I continue to appreciate this. And as we said last time, look at him here. He's probably 24, 25 years old, in the prime of his life, pioneering how to operate the waters, how to swim in the waters with this suit, then pioneering how to operate the cameras, pioneering family-friendly Flipper to incorporate that Lassie theme into an aquatic setup. So good that he had a good many years to him. Yeah. And G, to comment on another person who's recently passed, you had some thoughts for us.
Oh yeah, well, so in the news on Friday, Tom Sizemore passed away at the age of 61 from a brain aneurysm. Very sad that he's gone as well. He had a troubled life. He was very public about his struggles with substance abuse and his recovery. I was just watching Heat earlier this week, where he's fantastic in that film. Film is a lot slower than I remember on rewatch, but it's still a wonderful film. I was looking at his IMDb, and we were just Chris, you and I were talking about a little bit ago. I don't remember The Relic in detail.
That's so funny you said that, because that's the only movie I remember him in that I remember watching. Because it's at the Field Museum in Chicago.
That's right.
That's where it took place. Yeah. And the Cathoga monster, I had a model of it I had done when I was younger. So I love the monster. Of
That's
course.
amazing.
Yeah.
Because I get confused about there was a time when there was another Chicago museum used in a kind of not a horror movie but a scary movie. Flatliners, I think, took place at the
Oh,
Museum
that's
of
right.
Science.
Yeah. Yeah. With Keith Ursello. Yeah, they're at the University of Chicago, or yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they tried to make it
somewhere,
look
some
like
medical.
university.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So there was that, and then there was the relic. But then I think I get the relic mixed up with mimic, which
Oh, okay.
only because they have 5 letters in the end with the letter
Right.
C.
I could see that. Yeah, the relic is the one where the little kids get. There just happens they're doing a exhibit on superstition, and they bring in these relics, and they happen to be infected with whatever, and that this monster shows up, and then of course these little kids get stuck there overnight, and the mayor's there. It's fun movie.
You got a great memory.
Yeah, and I will say I did watch it not too long ago, and the museum doesn't look anything like that anymore. So if I didn't tell my kids that was the Field Museum, because we go pretty often, they would never have known that it was. But yeah, that was it.
And again, great when anything has a timestamp on it that at the time is current, but then as things change, it's great that things are captured as they used to look. Be fair for me to do a rewatch of Relic and even Mimic, but it'd be fair to revisit Sizemore's work and his abilities through a rewatch on Mimic. And I didn't know we were going to bridge into Flatliners, but I'll keep this tight. So it was also filmed at University of Chicago at the same time that Junkyard was, just because of their later start of the semester, as Junkyard was just settling into, or maybe even they finished filming before Junkyard finished moving into the dorm over there. But I tell you this,
A buddy of
the
ours.
scenes that were shot at Loyola, in the opening scenes of Flatliners, as the helicopters, and you don't really hear the helicopter noise in the movie, at least I don't think. It's been a long time, but there was it wasn't a real statue on the campus, it was a movie prop statue, and it was the Jesuit priest residence right against the lake. So, but the helicopter, and then, well, they got to take another pass or get the footage right or what have you. So as my dorm room was in the T intersection of the alley, and so it was off the top bar of the T right there was my window right there, and so funneled right down the alley was that helicopter noise early morning. I cannot forget that. I still appreciate that I got to see Flatliners and I haven't dug up this story for a minute, but boy, oh boy, right through the window, right,
Wow.
and it was cinder block. So, okay, those are things. So again,
Nice.
Good that we had some, good that Rico was able to give us what he was able to give us. Good that Tom Sizemore was able to give us what he was able to give us. And as we're carrying on now, as Sven is, what has Sven been, of the many ways that Sven has been entertaining. Dave, back to our main business.
All right.
Here. What are we looking at?
We are back at Movie Co. Theater in Rosemont, here in the lobby, and that's us right after his signing. We were posing for these pictures. They had these little monsters in the background, so you had to take advantage of it. Of course, they have every monster but the creature from the Black Lagoon, which is the movie he was showing, but whatever, gotta take what they give us.
All right.
That's great.
Yeah, and there is, this was taken in the summer of 2012, an extremely hot summer, and a busy summer for Svengoolie. He did probably more appearances, I think, in July than he did I think he about did the same amount of appearances in July as he did in October, sometimes 2 a day. This particular one, it was like literally 107 degrees outside. So it was super hot. So Svengoolie, you can see, wore his T-shirt rather than his signature outfit. And then here we are posing. Jim threw the chicken, and I'm supposed to try to catch it to protect Svengoolie from the chicken and getting hit by it. So this was another example of us making goofy pictures, for him to sign.
Let's have the replay. There's the pitch.
Yeah.
And there's the
and then it was funny because, like I said, after it was over, he took a picture of him wiping his brow, like phew, and then he took another picture where he's looking up at me with gratitude for saving him. It was funny. It's
Back
funny.
and to the left. Back and to the left.
Oh no!
Sorry. Sorry about that. I feel for the young lady in the background. She's just trying to sell foam fingers, orange foam fingers, and she's wondering, "Oh my goodness, what is
Right,
going
right.
on?"
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I was just say similar to last time with Dave and the chickens and Sven. It looks like Dave's having the time of his life, and
Oh yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
it's all about.
Yep, and that's the line to see him that day. So obviously the heat did not prevent the fan turnout, and there were more people in that line than there actually were out watching the game because the game was going on at this time. And then later Svengoolie went out there and threw the pitch and all that stuff. It was fun. I mean, other than the heat.
Other than the heat, fun.
Other than heat exhaustion, it was a wonderful day.
Similar, Dave. I don't think I got the pictures loaded, but you had referenced a trip to Antioch, Illinois, which I have some history with Antioch. But you were saying at a time before the internet, for the store appearance in Antioch, that Sven still drew a crowd equivalent of this size or a really big draw that he had.
Right. Well, it wasn't the internet was going, but social media was kind of, not quite what it is today. So we didn't really know the full popularity of Svengoolie till that appearance. And what happened was, anytime he appears up by the Wisconsin border, it's going to be a huge turnout, as I'm sure you saw, having been at Volo. Because he has a lot of people that were watching the Son of Svengoolie from southern, in the Milwaukee area who got the channel, who got WFLD. So anytime he comes that close to them, it's going to be a huge turnout. But we didn't expect it to be what it was. It was huge. I mean, it went literally, the line went down the entire block. It was the trick shop called JJ Blinkers that put on the event, and they did it to the hilt. Like, they had their workers dressed as rubber chickens, and they were selling Svengoolie and rubber chicken Rice Krispie treats that the local bakery had made. They were giving out little Svengoolie goodie bags to all the children that showed up, and it was just, I mean, if you're going to do an appearance, that was it. But they had no idea how it was going to be, and the signing went on over 2 hours. They still weren't able to get everybody, but it was insane. But also cool because you're like, wow, he really is popular. This is amazing, and this is before he was national, so it's pretty cool.
Wow.
And again, one of the Wisconsin residents who, in his younger years, that watched Sven, Mark Ruffalo, who's currently most known for his role as Bruce Banner, as the Hulk in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I know Sven has put on his show From C2E2. It was a chance meeting, like, to the best of my knowledge. It wasn't a scheduled meetup. It was literally in passing. And so Sven took a quick recording of their quick conversation. At that day, I was first in line for the signings. And I'm like, come on, Sven, where you at? And then, well, if you're talking to Mark Ruffalo, I suppose that's a valid reason to run a few minutes late.
Well, C2E2 doesn't let him reach out to anybody to arrange interviews. So when you're at C2E2, his crew, and even I have done it sometimes, where we'll have to try to go find someone and say, would you be willing to come talk to Svengoolie? So it's always going to be impromptu kind of a thing, which is frustrating because it would be nicer if they could kind of arrange something. I mean, I remember being in the green room with them and Paul Rudd when he was the guest there, and they were talking and joking around with him, and he was fun. But I don't think he got to do an interview with them because, again, it was just you're in the green room. We already talked about the green room. So yeah. But yeah, so there's a lot of chance encounters there. I know one time I was with him behind the scenes at C2E2, because if you're like if you notice, there's like those big curtains, and then behind the curtains is just this empty space, and that's where the celebrities kind of move around. Yeah. And we were back there, and then a golf cart was driving by with and somebody yelled Sven, and it was SpongeBob. The guy who does the voice of SpongeBob is a huge Svengoolie fan. He's from Chicago. And so then after we knew who he was, then we had to go find him and be like, would you be willing to come talk to Sven for the show? But he was back there. I think I was standing right next to him taking pictures. He was there talking to him for a while. I know another actor from Supernatural. There's a lot of actors, but again, it's their chance because you don't know what their schedules are and where Rich is going to be at the time. And so obviously this year we're striving for Chris Evans.
Which would be great.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd be really happy if I see Chris Evans. He's cool.
Captain America shield.
Yeah, full circle.
Also LaMarche and Paulson, Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulson, Pinky and the Brain. They've also
Yeah, absolutely.
appeared on Svengoolie as interviewees or as conversationalists with Sven.
Yeah.
All right, now again, very important in Sven lore, in Sven history, going back to Jerry G. Bishop and carrying through is Berwyn.
Yes, here's Berwyn, and here he is, the Grand Marshal of the Hobie Parade, which is a parade dedicated to mushrooms. And of course, that's one of the reasons why Jerry G. Bishop chose this city to make fun of when he became Svengoolie. The Hobie Parade was, I think it's Czechoslovakian, but now it's just a community thing. And they chose to have Svengoolie be the Grand Marshal, and they got a bunch of rubber chickens, which he would randomly throw to the crowd. Unfortunately, the city official who purchased the chickens got them from a relative, and that was a legal or political no-no. So after it was all over, the press was calling it Chicken Gate because that official was obviously in a lot of trouble, and I don't think Svengoolie was too pleased to have his name involved in that, since obviously he had nothing to do with it. He was just throwing the chickens. But it was funny. I think it's funny. Sorry, Chicken Gate. Come on.
It's
Can't
funny
make it up.
Go ahead, G.
You can't make that kind of
You
thing
can't
up.
make it up, and he did end up coming back to the parade a few years ago. Not as a grand marshal, but he did have his own little float. It was cool.
And now I just had the quick visualization of like an investigative reporter.
Right.
In
Where did those chickens come from? Dun, dun, dun.
Mr. Gooley, do you care
Yeah.
to comment?
Yeah. Would you comment on the chickens you were throwing?
No
Yeah.
comment. He said it to the
Yeah.
Svenmobile.
He holds up his shield. Yeah.
There it is. There it is.
Right.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right. Again, one more the parade and Jerry G. Bishop before Rich Koz had been a participant in the parade. And what do we have here?
Here we are at the Hawthorne racetrack. Svengoolie did an appearance there around this time of year. I know it was like kind of a late winter, early spring day, and part of the event was signing, and then he would get up and he would pick his picks for the horses he thought would win based on their names, and he told people why he picked it. There was one that was named after had the similar name to a teacher, his music teacher when he was in high school. So anyway, I at the time made one of the biggest errors of my blogging career because I thought to myself, it would be kind of a fun thing to put in the blog if I said I bet on those horses. But I, being the kind of person who doesn't like to bet, did not do it. I said, "I'll forget it." And of course, every single horse that man picked won. Every one. I could have came home a wealthy blogger had it not been for my, listening to the good angel on my shoulder instead of the bad one. That's what happens. But yeah, it was pretty funny how he managed to pick everyone and they won. It's crazy.
I haven't thought of so it's been a while since I've lived in Chicago, and so I was just looking online. I haven't thought about Hawthorne in ages, and it's still around, I guess.
Yeah, it still is.
Arlington isn't around.
No, I don't think Arlington is around anymore. There used to be one even here in near where I live, but it ended up burning. It burned down in the 70s, and now most of what you see is off-track betting in my neck of the woods. So I don't see a whole. I'm not close to Hawthorne.
Right.
Things have their rise and their fall. It changes over time.
Yeah,
sure.
And as we referenced last time, maybe a rise. Well, not so much the fall, but the rise part. We spoke on the career of David Naughton. So here's a little replica. Dave, what do we have?
So somebody who was a fan of the blog actually sent me these replicas of Dr. Raby's cans. Of course, they're just retooled cans of Dr. Pepper. And so I went there and brought this werewolf mask, and we made one of our creators paying tribute to Dr. Raby's.
Nice.
And this is at the Little Boots Rodeo that same hot summer, Joliet Slammers game.
All right, and clearly we could continue to speak on Sven at length ad infinitum. But as our commenter Blue Sasquatch had said a year ago, it's only 40 years of content. BRB, I'll catch up on that. There's a lot that could be said, but as we're winding down for this show here in this episode, we got a few other important highlights to look at.
So there is one of those political hot potatoes right there, the controversial rubber chicken from the Hobie. My daughter was fortunate enough to get one. So we have that we have that little piece of history right there.
Like
That's
father,
great.
like daughter. She looks like she's having the time of her life.
Oh yeah, yeah. I drag my kids to all half these appearances, and they're,
And let me, G, as we sometimes like to speak on the layering of images. G, can you make out that vehicle in the background there? What kind of?
The Berwyn police vehicle?
Yeah, well timed picture. Here's Berwin. We got Chicken Gate. We got the
yeah,
police
there it
on the
is,
scene.
ready
They're
to
trying to
take my
settle
daughter
it.
away for her
Okay.
part in this horrible
How
controversy.
funny.
Yep.
All right. Here's another setting.
That is my son at Horribles, and I had sent him. He had been. This was after Halloween. I think this took place in November, and that Halloween I had sent a picture of him dressed as Svengoolie for Halloween to Svengoolie, and this is before I had a blog and all that. I'm just a fan at this point that he doesn't really know, and then he saw my son at the event, and he said, oh, "Your picture's going to be on TV this weekend." And he did show it during the airing of Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. And unfortunately, my 85-year-old grandmother decided she needed to see that appearance of her great grandson and decided to sit through that movie. And I never heard the end of that. But yeah, she did not approve of the film, but she was very happy to see Alex on TV.
Oh, that's adorable. That's great.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
Gee, as we've said so many times before, right? The intergenerational stuff to be able to pass from one generation to the next, or sometimes three generations in the same household. Another testament and testimony to that.
Well, and it's unheard of in the horror host community. I mean, Chicago, in the horror host world, Chicagoans are always accused of being Svengoolie centric because Svengoolie was the only horror host that ever operated, which of course was not true. There were quite a few operating in the United States at that time. But in Chicago, we have the unique position to be watching our commercial television horror host with our children, who and having grown up watching him on commercial television as well. So you've got the nostalgia coupled with tradition. That's pretty strong stuff.
Definitely. All right, and here's another Dave and Sven together.
So I had my blog, myself and my co-blogger won the Rondo Award for Terror from Beyond the Daves, which was very exciting for us because the year before we had been voted that we'd ever be nominated, let alone win one. So that was really exciting. And Svengoolie was a big part of it because he had been so supportive of us in the beginning. So I brought it along to Horribles for him to sign, and I had, his idea of this great picture of us, but it was, again, over 100 degrees and humid. So by the time I saw him, I looked like I'd been flipping hamburgers in the back of a restaurant kitchen. So that didn't go over quite so well, but it was very nice.
Well,
that's fantastic.
David, you strike me as a humble guy, and let me stay within that. But also, if somebody has the mindset, if this kind of writing is your interest, Dave's got work in the Scary Monsters magazine as well as on his blog. So no hard sell, no hard push. If this is something you feel is your genre or is of your interest, you can't go wrong with chasing down a Scary Monsters magazine on an Amazon or on an eBay. And just it was one of the first things that Greg said was, "Hey, your writing quality,
thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, and thank you for promoting that. It's very nice of you.
I mean, the origin for the Fanboy Cantina thing actually was supposed to be a website. It was, and so I have the fanboycantina.com domain, but I've never used it for anything because this. Through the wonders of YouTube, it's
YouTube
it's
is
just different.
Well, YouTube is the future. YouTube is the way it is now. I mean, blogging is kind of passe. It's, back when we were doing it, it was 2010, and then at that point, blogging was more, popular. But now, me personally, I don't read a lot of blogs. I watch YouTube. I'll watch you guys before I'm going to go read any blogs. So, I mean, you're the future. I consider myself inactive. The blog still gets good hits, and I let it sit there and marinate in all the writing that's been done in the last 13 years. And every once in a while, I'll pop in there and write something. I'll always write something if I follow Svengoolie, so C2E2 will definitely be covered. So you just might see Mr. C in that blog very soon.
Hey.
But yeah, so I'll always cover Svengoolie events because he's in my backyard. He's the last classic television horror host really that's operating on commercial television.
Mm.
So obviously, I'm going to I'm not going to stop until he stops.
And Dr. Gangrene, by chance, if you're watching, we're still good with you. We're saying classic versus.
I know Larry. Yeah, I went out to dinner with him when we were in Tennessee. My friend and I. Yeah, we went to Olive Garden with him, and I went to his home in near Nashville.
Wow, that's
Great
cool.
guy. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. So hi, Larry. Larry, we love you too. Sorry, I'm being Svengoolie centric. I told you it's not my fault.
I appreciate the blog unto itself. I appreciate that by Dave being present at Volo, it gave us the opportunity to connect. And as we're coming kind of full circle here, and we got a little bit more to, again, we could keep going and going.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
As it was a year ago that I pulled this same photo off of the Terror Dave's blog to put into our first Rich Koz birthday tribute recognition of Rich for being an important character in our lives. So I come back to that photo, and as we're just a little loop over the edge.
Oh yeah, there's Svenny. He's a Twitter sensation. Yeah. So, I don't know how much time do we have to talk about Svenny. I don't.
Go ahead. I can always chop in a other.
Okay, so I will get right to it. So
pardon any awkward edits, but we got to speak on Svenny right here, right now.
Yeah. So many years ago, I don't know if it was before my blog or just after I started, I was on YouTube perusing YouTube channels and looking at a convention that took place in Ohio when I spotted in the background a Svengoolie doll, which in this guy's booth. And I was like, I have to have it. I mean, you have to remember back then, a t-shirt was all there was. We don't have all the bobbleheads and he did not have a store at that time. So when I saw it, I was like, oh God, I have that. And it took me, I want to say like a month to finally find out who that person was. And his name was Terry Cruikshank, and he was an artist in Pennsylvania. So I found him, reached out to him. I said, is that doll still available? He said, yes, it was. That there was only one of them. He had never seen Svengoolie. So I thought that was odd why he made the doll if he never seen Svengoolie. So I bought the doll, and it came to me. Terry Cruikshank has since passed away. Unfortunately, he died young from cancer, maybe a year or two later. It was not long after. So I went to Horribles, and I showed the doll to John Aranza, who was the owner of Horribles. And he said, oh, I'm the one that commissioned that doll. He said, we were going to sell these dolls at the shop. And I never asked him, why he never got the doll. Like, why was it for sale? Did you not finish the purchase? Or I don't know if, he wasn't really allowed to sell the doll because of, obviously he doesn't have the rights to Svengoolie, so I don't know what or maybe the markup would have been too much because it wasn't the cheapest thing. But, it just was one of those things. And so, yeah, Svenny is right here.
Wow.
And I remember I bought him, and I had a picture of him in a glass curio cabinet, and I posted on Facebook, and then Svengoolie commented underneath it his famous sound effect, "Can't breathe, no air," because he was in the glass. And then I brought him to one of the zoo appearances, which is where that picture was taken. Now this doll actually has, so he's not only appeared on the show and in that picture that I showed you, but he also was in the Svengoolie Uncrypted special. I don't know if you guys caught that in October. But there is a scene where Nanette Kerr is, she's a fan, super fan from Twitter. There's that scene where you visit the Svengoolie museum, with all the collectibles, and she's in there brushing Svenny's hair. So you can see him in that show, and she still talks about him. She actually, I think she even made like a poster of pictures with her holding the doll, and all. She wants this doll. But yeah, it's really funny because we were showing a lot. I don't know if you guys caught the episode Svengoolie showed not long ago, the Trilogy of Terror with the Zuni fetish doll. So in that movie, Karen Black has this little doll, and it says if the key falls out, it comes to life, kind of a thing. So I was always joking. I'm like, yeah, if the chicken falls out of his hand, it's over. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, so that's Svenny, and he's a one of a kind.
Priceless.
And kind of creepy, but
creepy, cool, creepy.
Creepy, cool, creepy. I just remember I showed it to a friend of mine who was not a monster fan, and he's like, "Wow, that doll is adorkable." Like, yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Hey, and let me say that as you had also taken the picture, the person who was just in front at Volo, the gentleman and the lady who were just in front of J Spy and me had the Nutcracker Sven, so there's shades of that in there. I would say there's shades of Durwood. Clearly Svengoolie. I'm sorry, Svenny, not Svengoolie. Clearly Svenny's a statue-esque kind of a guy, not he's no dummy. So, but it's cool the overlaps between the different incarnations of things, the different representations of things. I was gonna do that to just bring over our.
What's happening? Oh,
nice.
Our replica of the
Cool.
museum piece, because at the broadcast museum, there's the chicken at his feet, and then the crows are floating around on top. But yeah, it's
nice.
That's as close as I can get to Svenny, but I'm good. I'm good.
I have he's got that dummy doll. What's the name of that dummy? It's a Svengoolie replica dummy, and it's going to kill me that I can't remember the name. But I have a friend who made a replica of that. So there are other creepy Sven. There's lots of creepy Sven dolls out there, but there's only one Svenny.
We should close right there because it's not going to get any better than that. I'll just say quickly, Trilogy of Terror. I definitely had nightmares as a young guy. So,
me too. Yeah.
Yeah. As a closing, any comments on your other paraphernalia behind you? We know we got some rubber chickens.
Well, we already saw the Gene Simmons
right.
T-shirt, and then we have the studio used rubber chicken.
Yeah.
And then the T-shirt in the back is one of the old Son of Svengoolie shirts.
So that's late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, yeah. And so is the Son of Svengoolie autograph up on the upper right. I'm trying to run over here, but there's a lot of different pictures from that time. Yeah, absolutely. But I do want to thank you for having me on here, and I hope I'll see you at C2E2. Well, anybody that comes to C2E2 and you want to say hi, come on over to me and buy a shirt, because I'll be selling T-shirts.
And now for those who have watched, we'll know what Dave's face looks like. G, closing thoughts, parting comments.
Oh, this was a lot of fun, Dave. Thank you again for sharing your time with us and shedding more light on this icon of Svengoolie and Rich Koz.
Pleasure to do so.
Apologize
my favorite subject.
To viewers for whatever awkward edits I'm gonna chop together here. But hey, that's where I'm at in my editing skills. So that's where we go. Again, Dave, this has been so much fun. And again, all these back burner questions I have floating around in my head for Sven. It's been a great experience for me to get to advance on those questions and participate in. Hey, Sven, Rich Koz, happy birthday to you. Thanks everybody for watching. Svenny, thanks for being along for the ride. And that's all for now. And we'll see you guys in the future, be it on Terror Dave's blog, be it on the Fanboy Cantina channel or right here. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for coming. And